So, welcome to Hillbilly Crime. This is our hillbilly house where you are always family. If you are new here, I'm glad that you found us. And if you've been with us for a while, you already know that we don't do drive by opinions or nonsense. Now, tonight is an investigative show. We try to make them all that way. Not entertainment, not gossip, and not rumor. We're going to talk about sober living houses in Kentucky, what they are, what they are not, how money moves through them, and where waste, fraud, and abuse can happen when there's no real oversight. Now, this affects addicts, it affects families, it affects taxpayers, and whole communities, especially right here in the mountains. Now, listen, this ain't no attack on recovery. I'm in recovery myself, about 15 years in. So I have a lot of experience, lived experience, and knowledge on a lot of this. This is about accountability, transparency, and truth. Make sure you go join. We are also going to start doing our Bible studies, and we're going to start doing members only stuff on our Patreon. So make sure that you go join our Patreon. You can join that for free. Okay. There are some membership tiers there, but you can still join for free. So make sure that you do that. We want to set the investigation. Okay. Here's the problem. People keep using the term sober living like it means one thing. Most people, I think, automatically jump to abstinence. But that's not what it means. It doesn't mean just one thing. And they've changed over time. Rehab treatment facilities, they used to be abstinent only. That was the model that they were created with, right? Is abstinence only. I remember when I went, we weren't even allowed to drink caffeine unless you had to have Sprite or 7-Up or something like that, or caffeine-free Pepsi or something. You weren't even allowed to have caffeine pop. Not even coffee. Had to be decaf coffee. But now, most of them are medically assisted. So that means they're not going through the withdrawals. They're not laid up in the bed. They're not made to get out of bed when they're sick, dope sick, or, whatever. They're medically assisted. That means Suboxone or methadone, but it's the structure that a lot of people need, right? Sober living houses are a good idea in theory. When definitions get blurry, money gets blurry. Let's not lose sight of what we're looking for here. Money. That's where bad stuff hides. Now, I've got several screenshots of properties per se. I'm not going to put them up just because, there's just too many of them. I got so many. But they were of ARC. The many different properties that were under Tim Robinson's name, who's the founder of ARC and the owner of ARC. There were like 15 or more properties that were listed under his name, and they were businesses and nonprofits that were also listed underneath his name. And it made me start wondering, about the different kind of assets, the different kind of recovery housing that they have. Who pays for all this? Who pays for these people to go and live at a sober living house? How does all of that work? Well, I've done a ton of research today. A ton of research. So, what is a sober living house? A sober living house is it's recovery oriented housing. It's usually shared rooms, rules about no drugs or alcohol. There's usually curfews, meetings like AA meetings, or now I'd say that it's peer support. We're also going to be talking about peer support. It's not automatically a treatment facility. Not these sober living houses aren't. They are not a homeless shelter. Although I think a lot of them are being run that way. It is not automatically regulated like people think. You would think that the state or somebody would be regulating or overseeing or supervising these sober living houses. Let me ask y'all something in the chat. Before tonight, did you think sober living houses were licensed treatment centers? Yes or no? Drop it in the chat. Before tonight, did you think that sober living houses were licensed treatment centers? We want to see in the chat. Okay. So in Kentucky, it's where I live. In Kentucky, sober living houses can choose to either be certified under recovery housing standards. Some are, some ain't. And certification matters because that's where rules about safety, ethics, and resident rights come from. If a house is not certified, there may be no routine inspections, no required staffing standards, and very little proactive oversight. Is this shocking to you? Because it's shocking to me. I wasn't expecting it to be so. If you joined us last night, we talked about Eugene Cisco and the case. He was a man that was in Pike County, and he had opened up a treatment facility, a MAT clinic, and he ended up going to prison because he was double dipping or something. He was taking our money for our counseling, saying that the insurance didn't cover it, but then then he was billing the insurance too. So he was getting the cash from all of us, but he was also getting from the insurance. I think is
double dipping.
Yes, he was. That's what it's called. And a whole lot of people were patients there. And so that ended up affecting many of us. I went there myself. I was a patient at that clinic. So I ended up having to find me another doctor, which I did. But here's where folks really get confused, okay? Who's paying for all of this? Did you think that Medicaid paid for sober living? Would you have thought that? That these sober living houses are getting paid all this Medicaid money? because rent money and Medicaid money are two very different things. I just assumed that Medicaid was paying for the sober living housing or the houses as a treatment facility. But I was wrong. I was very wrong. Medicaid generally does not pay for rent, food, or a bed in a sober living house. That's usually paid by either the resident, their family, through donations, or some kind of short term help.